You're listening to Big World Network.
Average, Season 2, Episode 10, written by Jonathan Thompson, read by Heather Thompson. Grace stopped playing piano and acknowledged me silently as I sheepishly walked towards the room. "You don't have any books over there, do you?" I asked from the doorway. "No," she said coolly, "but I could find something else to throw if you want." "Thanks, but I'm good," I said, stepping over the threshold. "So, you're, in a secret club with my grandpa now, right?" "Yeah, we were just putting the finishing touches on our secret handshake. Getting the spirit fingers just right." Grace nodded. She even squeezed out a smile. "It's good to see you guys are really dedicated." I sat down on the couch that lined the wall facing the piano. And then, we just sort of stared at each other. Then and there I made a mental note to work on my bedside manner, although it seemed like it would be a prerequisite for interviewership. Something I should have already had before starting this project. Somehow I managed to skirt the system, but that's always sort of been my MO. I'm a rebel. Once again, my subject came to my rescue. "Listen," Grace shifted on the bench to face me. "I get what you're trying to do. My grandfather explained the whole thing. He actually gave us a pretty long speech about it. I kept waiting for him to start a slideshow. But I don't have any powers. I'm not like my family." There was not a drop of complaint or self-pity in her voice. In the same way that Gail was able to talk about her strengths without bragging, Grace was able to describe her illness without whining. I'm not sure how they managed to talk so objectively about themselves, but I was, and still am, in awe of it. It's just that when most people talk about themselves, or when I talk about myself, it sounds like I'm, talking about myself. And I'm really not all that interesting. So I don't get how someone so fascinating can describe amazing details about themselves so dispassionately. And all that did was make Grace more engrossing. It really wasn't fair. "But what you can do is still pretty awesome," I offered weakly. She scoffed. "I can't do anything. It's only bad. That's called a disease, not a power." Okay, now she sort of sounded like she was complaining, but it was merited. She had a point. Still, there had to be something positive about her situation, I thought. "Still, there has to be something positive about your situation," I said. "Really? Because I've lived with it for 16 years and I haven't come up with anything." She rocked her head back and forth as she spoke in a way that kind of made her look like a chicken. A beautiful, sarcastic chicken. "But yeah, I'm sure in the week of studying my family, you've gained some amazing insight that'll change my life." Grace looked at me, challenging me to show her the light, but I had nothing. I really needed to start thinking through these encounters ahead of time. I'm not sure why I thought I was good at winging it. I wasn't. "Well," I started, "you're extra sensitive to vibrations, right? Isn't that part of why you're so good at piano?" Her puckered frown faded, but only slightly. You really had to be looking for an improvement in her demeanor to notice one. And I wasn't just looking for an improvement. I was yearning for it. "I guess," she weakly agreed. "And you probably even feel vibrations in the ground too, right?" "Ugh, yeah, that's one of the worst feelings." "But you're like an Indian tracker, one of those worm monsters from Tremors." She softened more and I finally let myself relax. "I don't think that's as flattering as you think it is," she said. "No," I thought out loud. "I'm totally confident that both those things are awesome." She laughed again, but said, "But seriously, Quinn, it's still just an illness for me." "Well, can you humor me? Answer a few questions?" "Sure, why not?" she said indifferently, turning back towards the keys. Her fingers patted the notes of some silent song as our conversation progressed. I followed the same form that I'd been using with everyone when it came to the questions. How'd she find her power and when? Of course, I asked this in a more interesting way, I think. I don't really remember. But regardless of how cleverly I asked, Grace just looked at me like I was an idiot. And not just the regular, everyday variety of idiot. In the eyes of Grace, I was nothing short of a blathering idiot. "I don't remember all the details," she said. Then, maybe seeing some disappointment on my face, she added, "You expect me to keep a diary of all my chronic diseases?" I guess she felt like she needed to spice things up. "So there's nothing about your childhood that could have made any connection to your enhanced sense?" "Like what?" "Well, for everyone else I've talked to, there's been something that influenced how these sorts of things turned out. It seems like you all have a gene or something that gives you the potential to develop powers later, depending on your environment." Grace just sort of huffed, but it was a very, very pensive huff. "Like your mom had to raise her brothers and sisters," I continued, "so her vision developed the way it did to help her. So, something about my childhood that would make me extra sensitive to touch," she axed, mostly to herself. Her fingers kept up their dance on the keys while she looked off. I watched her, nervously biting my lip. "Maybe it was the only thing left," she said after a long pause. "What do you mean?" I asked. "It's pretty obvious. I'm the baby of a family of supers, and each of them had their own senses supercharged, so it was all taken care of for me. Touch was the only option." "Yeah, but why couldn't you have gotten, flight or something? Why'd it have to be all senses?" "Maybe my super gene is limited like that." And without even realizing it, Grace completely blew my mind. I hadn't even considered the possibility that there could be variations on the super gene. It opened up a whole new realm of thought and expanded the theory exponentially. I was freaking out, but, in a good way. Not only had I had an actual conversation with Grace, one in which I was neither threatened nor assaulted, I was also given new insight into the super world. Plus, Grace had said something phenomenal. "We should hang out more." Those were her parting words. They flew around my head inside and out, consuming all my attention. I heard them over and over again, searching for any possible hidden meanings. So it's really not surprising that I didn't notice the dog barreling down the street at me at about 1 billion miles per hour after I'd left their house. I didn't mind dogs, but dog is too soft of a word for this thing. It was a beast. But in the interest of clarity, we'll call it a canine beast. Before I fully registered what was happening, he was no more than 20 feet away, and his intent was clear on his big, ugly face. For some reason, the canine beast had decided that I had to die. I took off running towards the house, the dog making a wide arc behind me. Slamming the door shut, I left him snarling outside. Occasionally, his toothy head would pop up in the small windows that lined either side of the door, just to let me know he was still hanging around. "Wow!" my dad shouted as he flew to my side. He actually flew inside the house. Sometimes I felt like he was just rubbing it in. I eyed him suspiciously. "You can't control animals, can you?" Full of genuine innocence, he said, "I don't know. Let me check." He glared out the window at the ferocious animal. My dad contorted his face, pushing his eyebrows and lips into all sorts of insane shapes. "Nope," he finally concluded. "You want waffles for dinner?" "More than anything," I said, and left my accusations and the dog behind. Breakfast food, in my experience, is the great peacemaker.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.
You're listening to Big World Network.